So our guest today, Mr. Darshil Shah, is a 26-year-old entrepreneur. You can call him a CEO, you can call him a director, or you can even call him an intern. Darshil, welcome to the podcast.
Like 3 Idiot dialogue goes, right? सक्सेस के पीछे मत भागो, एक्सेलेंस के पीछे जाओ और सक्सेस ऑटोमेटिकली पीछे आ जाएगी. वायरल जनता करती है, आप नहीं. आप क्या कंट्रोल करते हो कि वो वायरलिटी का उसमें कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स है कि नहीं. व्हेन यू लिसन टू 100 people, you know the commonalities. Once you figure out the commonalities, you know what the truth is and how to implement it. If you're doing a business, let's say if I joined my father's business, I would have easily earned 1.5 lakhs a month. I was a jugadu, man. As a service provider, think of yourself as a doctor. If let's say the मरीज comes in saying मुझे क्रोसिन दे दो और आपको पता है कि उसको एक्सरे करवाना है क्योंकि उसको हड्डी में पेन है, तो आप क्या करोगे? That's the simple answer to your question.
Welcome, Darshil. So let's start. How was your childhood like, and how did you go forward, and how did you get into this agency business?
So I don't know where I can trace the steps back to, but I've always been a creative person. One thing that worked in my favor was I was an introvert. So I used to not have a very active social life. I used to spend a lot more time by myself. That gave me a lot more time to explore what I was interested in, capable of, and what I really wanted to do. When we were in college, I pursued BMS, Management Studies. And during that time period, when I was 18, we started doing a small market research survey with like a sample set of 100 restaurants in Mumbai. We wanted to know why restaurants shut down. 8 out of 10 restaurants shut down in the first 5 operating years is a well-known fact. So we just were curious to understand what is the problem statement there and what is the possible solution. And what we realized is customer acquisition and retention was the biggest bane, was the biggest problem. So we set out to kind of try and sort it out. So from the research, we got a couple of clients who really wanted to understand how can we help them. We were good with understanding social media content. We were good with understanding design. So that's where we started off from. We freelanced with a couple of clients to help them do performance marketing, which wasn't a term at that time. But we helped them get sales from social media posts and ads itself. So that's where our journey started. Those 2 clients recommended us to 4 more each. By the time we graduated, we had 8 paying clients. So we had to get an office, employ a couple of friends. And that's how we started out with my first agency, which was Blaze Onion. We did that for a good 5 years. We were very sure that we wanted to stick to a niche before we broaden our horizons to work with other industries. One thing that happened, which is good and bad at the same time, was that lockdown hit. We were in the F&B business, which was heavily hit due to that. So we went from 20 plus paying clients to 0 within a day, literally. And we had 20 plus employees at the same time, which we didn't want to kind of lay off or let them take the brunt for it. So what we did is we pivoted. We had a runway of 6 months. So we started figuring what more can we do. And every day sitting on the laptop, doing team meetings, we were always jamming what more can we do. During that time, luckily, we sent out a broadcast to all our clients saying, hey, we are ready to take up more work from other industries if needed. And like touch wood, most of them reverted with some of the other things that they needed help with. So during that time, what we realized is we are really good with helping brands launch as well. Because we understand what goes behind the customer mindset of why they choose a particular brand. And we understand how to market them, how to do go-to-market strategies. So that's where we came up with a brand consultancy called Blank Space. And that was my second startup, which we did for the next 3 years. During the lockdown, we launched 60 plus brands from various different industries, from pharmaceutical to fashion to technology. Helped a lot of brands go from ground up to even build communities of 150k plus followers on social. That's where we actually started working with this agency, very well known in India, called Chatterbox. And they had a parent company called QU Media. So they were really keen at figuring synergies, and we worked with them for 2 years as a service provider, after which we went on to getting acquihired by them. So our whole team moved into Chatterbox, and that's what we are doing today. We run an agency called Chtrsocial under Chatterbox, which helps brand humanize their content and grow their virality and sales on social media.
Do you come from a business background, or was this which you started off your own? What was it like?
So Yeah, our whole family and bloodline is into business. So we've always been born and brought up to understand that business is ultimately what reaps the best benefits. And that's something I was very headstrong to do since the start. My father was into a retail business. My brother took it up and expanded it. Every other relative I have is into some or the other form of business. So the background is business, but no one ever expected me to start a completely new field like I did.
So, I mean, how do you convince your parents that you want to do like agency business and not join their family business?
So the tough part isn't that you want to do something else than what they're doing, but the tough part is when they don't understand what you are doing. For the first 5 years, actually, my dad and mom never understood what digital marketing is or what we were doing in like overall. So the tough part was to explain to them that, hey, we can also get paid to do creative shit like this. When we were in college, our parents were more than happy to let us do something productive. There was a point during our exams of the last semester where we used to study for half the day, then work for half the day, and then again study at night and then go to give exams. My dad kind of put his foot down and said, hey, what are you doing and why are you putting so much effort over there? Won't you get burnt out? And we have a business. Why don't you come here? You'll get much more benefits for the effort you're putting in. So that's when I said that, hey, this is something that genuinely can be built. I know it. I can do it. Let me try it out. And he said, fair enough. I'm giving you this particular milestone. So 1 year down the line, if you're hitting this kind of revenue as a milestone, that's when it's a fair business. And luckily that kind of triggered a lot of motivation. Everything was happening in our favor. It was 80% luck, 20% hard work. And we hit that milestone within six months timeline itself. Surpassed it by a good 50%, just to clarify. So my dad was more than happy. We joke around in the house that at one point he was telling me when to join his line. We reached a point where he was retiring and I was asking him, do you want to join my line? So it was a fun joke going around.
Okay, and the goal that your dad had given you, the revenue goal, can you disclose the number?
So he basically said that if you're not doing ₹1,00,000 a month in the first 1 year, like let's say you're not being able to hit profit of 12 lakhs in a year, then you're doing something wrong, right? Because if you're working anywhere as a salaried person after doing the graduation that you do, you'll get 30,000 to 50,000 is the kind of range you'll get paid. But if you're doing a business, let's say if I joined my father's business, I would have easily earned 1.5 lakhs a month by myself. So my dad was kind of generous enough to say कि 1 lakh भी अगर कमा लिया महीने का profit तो अच्छा है.
And now, what kind of revenue are we doing? But at the peak of Blaze Onion?
So at the peak of Blaze Onion, I always had this goal that if I'm being able to hit, let's say 8.33 lakh a month, I'm doing a crore, right? So our North Star was always to set, okay, what is it that we can set as a annual goal? How can we break it down as per quarters? How can we break it down as per month? And how do we reach there? And we had two different lines of service. One is a retainer and one is a project base, right? Retainer is something that you get paid monthly for. And we were constantly aiming to increase that because that's how you built an incremental business. And the second part, which is campaigns or project-based projects that we do, they come once in a while and you do different time-based services for them and get paid once. And they might come in different forms repeatedly, but they are not consistent. So we never relied on it. We always focused on increasing the retainer business, and then a campaign or a project-based earning is an add-on.
What you did was you provided one client really good service, then he recommended you to other 4 clients, right? Yeah. So did you have any other sales process as well to get more clients in those days?
Very frankly, for the first 4 years, that was not the case at all. Okay. We were always having our hands very full. Any kind of creative line of work or servicing line of work, it's always that if you do good work for someone, they're going to go in their networks and recommend you to more people. It works in very magical ways. There's a quote by Steve Jobs that says you can connect the dots only while looking backwards, right? It's not something you can put effort into and try and build. So funny story. We had a small restaurant in Kemp's Corner called 29 we used to work with. Nishek, the owner of that, became very close friend. He loved the kind of services and the passion we came with. So he recommended us to many more people. He recommended us to his investor, who recommended us to their consultant, who recommended us to another client that they were consulting. And that ultimately got us a client from US that used to partner and do a JV with that particular business in India. There was another client that we got introduced to called Chtrsocial. Animesh is one client that really grew with us because we worked with him for a consistent period of 5 years on a retainer basis. And that very less often happens in our line of work. But he really credited the kind of work that we did to his growth also. And he was really grateful about everything that we did for them, so much so that he has recommended to at least 80 to 100 other clients over a period of time. And that's also not even exaggerating it.
I had this question that in the initial days, as you told, servicing the client was very important, providing them with the proper service. So what was the hiring and training process during those period?
My training process is very simple. I'm a staunch believer that every founder should do every dirty laundry by themselves first. What I mean is every job that you get, every inquiry that you get, try and visualize what is the servicing for that particular inquiry by yourself first. If you were doing it, how would you do it? In the first 1 year, I have by myself serviced more than 5 clients at a time to understand how difficult it is, what the pain points are, how the process should be in a way that the client gets the best experience. From that experience, I built what we call as SOPs, standard operating procedures. It's very difficult to do so in creative fields because a lot of it depends on the talent that you have. But also there are few things which need to be run as a process. There is a weekly checklist, which basically says, let's say on every Monday, you need to send out the week's plan of action to the client. On every Thursday, you need to do a hygiene check and make sure whatever campaigns running is there in the bio link, in bio, etc. On a monthly basis, there needs to be a different checklist. Let's say start of the month, first week, you do the analytics, you send it to the client. Second week, you start planning the campaigns and content for the next month. Third week, you plan the shoot sheet. And the last week, you do a shoot and get everything out of the way. I personally did all the roles by myself, created processes, then hired someone to take that process up, overlook them. We have another thing that we call as, and this is something I've learned from an employee who used to work at a big agency. Do monkey, see monkey, do monkey, and then see monkey, do monkey.
What's that?
The first thing is do monkey, see monkey, which means you do, and your employee or the new recruit sees what you're doing. So they observe and learn. Then it is do monkey, which means you do together the same task. That's when you realize what are they missing out on, what are the gaps that they don't understand or need to get trained on. See monkey, do monkey, which means they do and you are overlooking them. So till those 3 phases are not over, do not leave the task just on them because they are sure to fuck up. They are sure to make mistakes.
But in the initial days, did you have some mentor to walk you through how to create SOPs?
Like now, because I work with a lot of really good people from the industries, I get to observe and learn a lot from them. But to be very honest, we live in an age where you don't need a mentor sitting next to you. Every piece of knowledge or information is available at fingertips for everyone. If you have a problem, just Google it. And we used to have this in big written on a softboard in our first office saying, just fucking Google it. Because everything you want to do is available as an information. You are not putting in the effort to learn it, right? And like my initial years have just been observing online mentors. Like there are so many people who are putting out really great content out there, which you can learn so much from. There used to be one YouTube channel called The Future without an E, and the mentor is Chris Do. And this is when they were also starting out. Like today, The Future is very big. At that time, Chris was just doing small podcasts and small content pieces with Jose Cavalier, where they started out the school. And we started following up them from that time because every piece of content they put out was really good. So we used to follow it to the T, right? You need to understand who is the subject matter expert in whatever it is that you want to learn, and follow them and mimic them like a monkey. You need to understand what is it that they're doing. Every skill or everything that you want to master has a particular method to the madness. Okay. And the best benchmarks that you can keep, you will have some kind of pattern recognition that you can do on what is it that all of these people are doing that is similar. Once you analyze those patterns, you know that these are the characteristics or the process. And all you need to do is follow that.
So I think Chris Do also has a paid course, right? So you used to invest money in those courses or what?
I was a jogadu, man. I've never invested in the first 8 years of building my business. I used to, like, literally the only money I invested was in my first website, and that was 4,646 rupees. That was hosting the website, like end to end. That is all that I did. And that also I borrowed from my mama, which I have returned in. Of course. We used to be very jogadu. So for example, Chris Do had this one particular video where they do something called as a discovery workshop, where they go to brands analyze their brand archetype and structure in detail. And there used to be things written on a whiteboard that they used to do during those workshops. Now, they didn't give out that whole process in a course at that time. But what we did is went to the video where the whiteboard is there, pause it, screenshot it, understand what is the process they're doing in that workshop, and reverse engineer that.
Oh, wow.
And we used to start selling that as a service. So in your initial years, like, it really isn't that you need to pay for courses and learn from people. It is your willpower that really teaches you. And once you analyze that this is something that is a gap that you need to learn, go heavy on it, man. Like when we started social media marketing as a service, there was a website called Social Media Examiner. They used to dumb down every topic that you need to learn in a very understandable manner. And at that time, when I was 18, there used to be thousands and thousands of blogs they've written. So I used to take a week out and just study each and every blog in detail. And I have gone through each and every blog that they had put out at that time, which was very relevant knowledge and expert knowledge at that time to understand. And once you've understood it, start implementing it. Like the best form of learning is when you have a problem that you figure out a solution to by yourself. You don't learn in the classrooms. You don't learn if a mentor tells you what to do. Trust me, even till date, no matter how good a mentor we have by our side, till we don't try to find the solution by ourselves, we are not going to take someone's word for it. It's very difficult to digest that knowledge and remember it for the rest of your life.
Tell us some interesting stories or case studies from your journey at Blazed Onion with restaurants.
So there was a small cafe that we were launching in Juhu with friend, I won't even call him a client now, called Akshay Arora. So he's a crazy guy in himself, has amazing ideas. So we started jamming on what the brand can be called and how can we launch it. We spent a good half a month in just the naming of it, and we ultimately figured out to call it Fukin. So Fukin is a name, but in Mandarin it also means father of all. We played with double meanings across the branding. So their whole menu had really interesting wordplays, which spoke to a radical youth customer that they were trying to target. And we figured out how do we attract these kind of people. So when we launched, our go-to-market strategy at that time was to do meme marketing. And what we did was we created 5 really viral and crazily entertaining memes. One was King Jong-un doing a roll as a bow. One was Kim Kardashian and it said best buns hun or something like that. We got every Bollywood celeb or a good socialite following account on Instagram to post about it. So even today, if you go on Fukin's Instagram, the first highlight would technically show you what kind of level of awareness we kind of reached that with. And we got big Instagram account called Chtrsocial to come into our cafe and create a reel with a lookalike, which was Akshay's driver. And we created a small Instagram page called, we created like a lot of fun videos overall. So even for smaller projects, if you think big, you can make big things happen.
How big was that restaurant?
It was literally 10-seater.
That's it?
That's it.
Do you want to share any other stories from
Sure.
any such things which you've done for restaurants?
We worked with the Sandwich Mania company. So we did an interesting project on the packaging of it, that as soon as you get the packaging, there's a QR code on top, which when you scan, opens an Instagram filter. And at that time, like, filters were very new.
Yeah,
So it played a game where you have to match a mood. So interesting insight. Most people think of having a snack when they start getting mood swings between meals because they realize they are hungry, right? So we played on that insight and we created the Sandwich Mania company. So when you scan the filter and you mimic the mood and you tag the brand, we send you an auto DM, which will have a coupon code to go on our website and redeem. So it solves multiple problems for the brand. One, you understand who the customer is. One of the biggest problems for restaurants was that they used to not know who the customer is. Zomato, Swiggy don't give numbers of the customer. You can't build a database and remarket to the customers. So we solved that problem by getting the social handle touched to our brand. Second, if the customer keeps on repeating the order from Zomato, Swiggy, you have to pay a commission to the platform, the aggregate. So we solved that problem because the coupon code that we send only is redeemable on the website of the brand. So you're getting a direct order. So you're saving 25% of your revenue over there. And the third thing it does, like, you have the profile of the customer to remarket to. So we basically figure out these kind of campaigns based on what problem the brand is trying to solve.
That's so interesting. I mean, so did it get any results for the client?
100%. So within 1 month, we had a database of almost 500 people because everyone who used to order used to scan and participate.
Right. Interesting.
What is your process to make the brand bring more revenue and grow them on the social media?
Sure. So whenever we get any brand on board, firstly, we try to become a part of the brand. What I mean is any marketing partner or agency that's working with any brand needs to focus on first understanding the brand inside out. If let's say you're a video marketing company, you can't go to a brand and say, मैं आपके लिए video बना दूंगा, without understanding what does the brand even want to position themselves in the market as. And that's where we do a long workshop with the client when we onboard them. And we go deep into the demographics, psychographics of the customer. Why does someone purchase something from them? Why would they repeat the purchase? Why would they recommend that brand to someone else? We go into every single touch point journey of a customer. And then we figure out what are those touch points where we need to leave an impression in the customer's mind. That's what brand truly is, right? It's how you remember a particular brand and a message from the brand. So once we analyze all of those things, we figure out what are the best services, which are least effort, best rewards for the clients. And then we package and custom make that service for the client. Because if you're coming to me saying, I want to make social media reels, yes, okay, I can do it for you. But is that going to solve the problem you're trying to face? Like the problem you're currently facing? Because if let's say a customer comes to me saying social media post मुझे करवाने आपके पास है because मुझे sale नहीं आ रहा है, firstly as a service provider you need to consult the client saying, hey, this is not going to solve your problem. Most clients out there think social media पे post करके मुझे sales आ जाएगा, but that's not the problem they're trying to solve. So first thing that we do when we get any inquiry is to try and understand the problem. Once we understand the problem statement, we come up with insights, and then from that insight we figure out the services that we need to do. It could be campaign building, it could be social media content, it could be doing performance marketing to get them sales, it could be something very different. And that's where you start customizing very creative services for clients.
For customization, you need a lot of time to do the research and invest a lot of time for that, right? So how much time
100%.
do you spend per brand in the initial stage for just doing the research? And do you do it yourself? Or do you have a process team that does that for you?
So we used to have brand strategists on board. Currently, however, I do it personally. Whenever a client comes in, we spend at least 3-hour long workshop with the client to go very deep on each of the points that we need to understand from them. That's a very proprietary discovery workshop that we do with the clients, where we get insights on every level of the brand's current state and the achievable state. So this is a question that we ask clients very nicely, which has gotten us the best results, is 6 months after working with us, what's going to make you say that, Darshil, you did a fabulous job? Once I understand that is when I understand what are you looking for. And that's where we start customizing those services from.
So, and how do you figure it out with the new brands which have come? So they'll give the insights of what they want to do, they want to achieve. But they won't know how do they do it or what problems will they have while doing it.
3 types of customers that might come to you. One, who are aware. They understand the problem. They are the subject matter experts in how to solve them. And they've come to you with a very constructive brief saying, this is what I need your service in. These are usually people who have years of experience in the same field. So one thing you need to analyze when you're getting a brief from a client also, or an inquiry, whether they are the subject matter experts in the field or not, of whatever they are, like in terms of product or service, what they're offering to customers, or in the field of marketing also. If they are aware, you do the services with them, right? It is not done for you, it is done with you service, because you need to know that they are the subject matter experts over there. So you need to work with them to kind of solve it. There are people who are completely unaware. That's where you need to consult them and handhold them all along the way. Out of your experience, out of the things that you have done in the past, if you don't have the experience, bring someone in that has the experience, and then work with them where they are also a part of the whole process, where they can solve it. For example, we've done collaborations between our clients also. Someone who's in the restaurant industry since a long time, who's been doing multiple chain of restaurants as like a growth journey in their time period, we brought them in as a consultant to a new customer who wanted to start doing franchising. Because they are the subject matter experts, we are not. So that's what you need to analyze, that you need to do that for the benefit of the customer, not just sell services selfishly, right? And the third kind is people who think they know it, but they don't. So they are unaware that they are unaware, right? But they come to you saying, नहीं मुझे तो ऐसे ही लोगो चाहिए, मुझे लोगो बनाना है, मुझे पता है वो ऑरेंज कलर का होना चाहिए, मुझे पता है वो ये फॉन्ट में होना चाहिए, आप बना के दो. And those are the kind of clients we try to stay away from.
Third one is the most difficult one, I think.
Yes, and it takes a hell lot of effort in you just trying to get the client to understand that their perspective is wrong. And those biased clients are usually the businesses that will really suffer, because the client's trying to just force a person who knows how to do things into a wrong direction.
Recently faced an same situation where we onboarded a client, but the client doesn't know what they want. It's very difficult for a lot of people when they're starting out, because you have to listen to all those requirements also and bridge the gap between the client and an agency.
Okay, as a service provider, think of yourself as a doctor, right? If your client comes in, if let's say the मरीज comes in saying मुझे क्रोसिन दे दो, और आपको पता है कि उसको एक्सरे करवाना है क्योंकि उसको हड्डी में पेन है, तो आप क्या करोगे? That's the simple answer to your question, right? You need to first work with them and tell them what they are missing out on, what they are losing out on if they keep being sturdy in their bias and say कि नहीं मुझे यही चाहिए. You say, okay, अगर ऐसे करना है तो go to someone else, because I can't give you the wrong medicine. I'll lose my license because of that. And that's what we need to realize, that if we actually take clients' money and offer them a wrong service, ultimately they're still going to leave. But they'll leave while diminishing your reputation in the market. So it's better to not take up that work and focus on like a different patient who actually is ready to listen to your solution.
Right. Makes sense. Tirath का frustration बाहर आ गया था.
It's very true, bro. Every agency owner I've spoken to, this problem exists. And most of the customers don't, like today digital marketing is such a simplified topic that everyone thinks they know it. Right? When we go to brands, they are like, नहीं मुझे महीने में 45 posts चाहिए, उसमें से 15 static होने चाहिए, 15 reel होने चाहिए, 15 carousel होने चाहिए. Why? They have no fucking clue. But they are told by the masses that you need to post every day, only then will you get engagement, right? There's a very different stage you need to be at where you do that like quantum of posts, where you will get that feedback fast and you'll be able to maneuver fast. If you're at a stage where you don't need that, you don't need to do it. So you need to consult the client, play that dance with them and try and understand, like make them understand what the problem is.
So I mean, at this point of time, you are at that position where you are at a state where you can say no to a client. But when you initially started off your journey, did you have that same mindset?
If you ever take up a project for the reason of money, you're always going to fuck up. If you keep at the forefront that I have to close the sale because I need that revenue or that like fees that the client is going to pay me, you're going to fuck up 99% of the time. You need to have a mindset that is agnostic of the money that comes in the project. You need to understand that what the client is trying, like we are consultants. At the end of the day, we need to solve someone's problem, and that should be the pure focus when it comes to sales. If you try to focus on the money, you're going to take up the projects that you regret working with, and everyone's gone through that journey. You need to learn that somewhere down the line.
So tell us how, from a lot of restaurants, what niches did you shift to and how do you get other clients in that position?
So again, interesting story. We work with this mithai brand called Tiwari's. They're an opera house and Juhu. They had a design agency on board where Shivjeet, again, became a very close friend, used to work. And he started a new startup called Steps at Go, which is an app that rewards you for walking. Very interesting app. And they were just 3 founders at that time. They were also starting out. So we went for a meeting with them and he said, bro, just come meet us because we really want you to take this up. And at that time, we were very clear that we don't want to take non-restaurant clients. But they're like, just come and meet us. We went and we met him. And he was very, we actually consulted them, hey, no, instead of us, just hire an intern, we'll consult you. But you please take care of social media by yourself. But they were like, no, you guys take it up. We are sure you'll do well. So that was the first account we took up, which was non-F&B. And we literally grew their Instagram from 0 to 135K plus followers organically on Instagram within a span of 1.5 years. And from there, Shivjeet is technically brother-in-law with Zahir Khan. So we started working with Zahir on a brand called Pro Sport, which is a gym brand. like that through networks, more and more we got in touch with more brands which were non-F&B, and we had to take up due to pressure of like the client that they really wanted our services because they've seen our work on the other brands.
So 0 to 135K, do you have any process in mind that if you follow on consistent basis, you can get viral videos for your social media or something like that?
So they didn't become viral because of videos. And at that time, videos weren't the thing that used to work on Instagram the most. See, at the core of marketing, the funda is very simple. Understand your customer, get them super interested in what you have as a value proposition, build a community around them and make them a part of your brand.
Okay.
If you're being able to do that, you have that community feeling already. That's how you grow followers overall. So for Steps at Go, for example, we understood who the TG was. For Instagram specifically, they were very young, enthusiastic people who were from tier 2, tier 3 also, not just tier 1. So we started doing a lot of memes. Worked really well. We did very relevant memes for walking, the app UI of Steps at Go, or a lot of interesting places where the user or the viewer of the content had a recall of the app, but at the same time it was so entertaining that they could share that content with their friends. At the crux of virality, it's shareability. If something gets shared multiple times over by masses, that's when we call something viral, right? So the metric we really focus on is shareability. If you're getting enough shares on your content, you know it's performing, and that's where you'll become what we call as viral today. So we built that whole community because we used to do consistently engaging content and campaigns, and people were super interested in it. Another thing we did was a growth hack. Okay. So in the onboarding journey of Steps at Go, so Steps at Go as a concept rewards you for walking. You get coins for walking with steps, like they convert steps into coins, and it's a gamified process of earning more steps. So in the onboarding journey of new users, we simply put a growth hack. So in the onboarding journey of the app, there was a step that rewarded people coins for following us on Instagram. Technically, It wasn't even following. It was just clicking on the button, going on Instagram, but people followed from there. And that's how we got a lot of new users onto Instagram. Then we retained them through content really well. So you also need to think of distribution. Where is the new audience going to come from? People who don't know about your brand will not magically come to know about it. You need to focus on what are the growth hacks you can do, which can get you that additional audience.
So basically, is there any process for content to go viral? Like if you do something on consistent basis, maybe for a month, 2 months, your content will start getting viral. Do we have some process in that area?
So as I mentioned, right, like at the crux of virality, it is shareability. Way before TikTok happened in India, way before Instagram Reels came in or Shorts came in, we've even then managed to get multiple thousands of views on organic social media posts also. I'll give you an example. We had a client called Eat Anytime, a health snacking brand. We did a campaign for Mother's Day. Now, normally what do brands do on Mother's Day? Something that's very relevant and makes you emotional about your mom. That's usual. But one thing that we challenged as a hypothesis was, do moms actually come on Instagram? At that time, a lot of elderly TGs, like elder target groups, were not on Instagram yet. So we thought, why not, instead of doing it for moms, make it shareable for friends? So we switched the whole concept and made it relevant to being able to get shared with friends. So the whole content piece was tag that friend who acts like a mom. And we gave relatable concepts, like your friend is like, aap raat ko ghar pahunch gaye kya? And stuff like that, right? So it got shared so many times that it became viral at that time when we were doing 1x1 posts as statics on Instagram also. So even today, the concept is very similar. You have to understand who's the TG, who will they share it with, and why. Once you answer these 3 questions, you're very much sorted in terms of the kind of content you want to do that has the potential to go viral. Viral जनता करती है, आप नहीं. आप क्या control करते हो कि वो virality का उसमें characteristics है कि नहीं. And those characteristics are very well known and very common knowledge. So the concept even today is very simple. Today, micro video content works the most because the user journey on Instagram itself, most of the users of Instagram spend a lot more time on video feed, right? अगर लोग रील में बैठे हैं तो न्यूज़ फीड पे आप स्टैटिक करोगे तो वो वायरल नहीं जाएगा. अगर रील वायरल जा रहा है तो कौन से तरह के रील्स वायरल जा रहे हैं वो आपको रिवर्स इंजीनियर करना है. सो यू हैव टू जस्ट फिगर आउट विथ माइक्रो वीडियो कंटेंट, फॉर एग्जांपल, व्हाट रियली मैटर्स इज योर फर्स्ट 3 second रिटेंशन. What really matters is whether you're being able to create suspense so that the client stays till the end of the video. What really matters is at the end of the video, do you have a loop that makes people not realize that the video has ended? Because repeat views as a hidden metric also make the reel perform much better. The ultimate goal is basically to get the content shared, and the structure of your content piece today should be relevant to that.
If you were about to start your agency today, given the current market scenario and the trends that are going on, what would you do to grow to the scale that you are right now?
So if you go to see, every nook and corner has 2 new agencies coming up today.
Yeah.
Right. So agency as a model has become very common knowledge, and that's why it's the most important to figure out your moat first. What's the X factor why a customer would come to you compared to any other agency? Till you don't have that question answered, starting an agency is a hazard, because what you'll end up doing is what everyone is doing, and the only game you can play over there is to play on price, which means you can't scale your business, you can't earn a lot of money. So if I was to start a business today, I would pick a niche. So a niche is a small set of the market. So how we started with food and beverage as a niche, you need to pick a small market and you try to capture majority of that small market. That's something that there's a video by Sam Altman that talks about how you need to capture a big share of a small market first, and that's what makes a business kind of prosper. So if I was to start an agency, I would pick a small niche and I would try to figure out the specific problems they actually face. Once you figure out the specific problems that small niche faces, you can go very personally talking to them and pinching those pain points and say that your service is the solution to them. So for example, if I've seen a lot of agencies in performance marketing come up for lead generation for real estate, because they make buildings and they want to sell out very quickly. So it just makes sense for them to do quick advertisement, get a lot of leads and make a sales team approach them. There are a lot of businesses you can really improve by including whatever service it is that you want to offer, and you want to figure out who that core customer is that has a very specific pain point that you want to try and solve. And that's where you can build your agency.
And also working in a niche gives you a branding that you are an expert in that niche. So
100%.
that you can maybe charge more or you can command a good price, right?
So even today, even if we've stopped working as Blaze Onion, we still get close to 3 to 5 inquiries a week, because if you search for restaurant marketing in Mumbai, the only website that shows up, which is a Mumbai agency, is ours. So it's very important for you to show dominance in a particular industry as an agency first, and then expand to
But
others.
how do you find your niche? I mean, it's a very difficult question for anyone who's starting out right now.
The insights usually lie around you. It is upon you to open your eyes. You will see the demand somewhere. You need to analyze if the demand is increasing or decreasing, and then dive into it. So for example, right now, the trend of making reels in weddings is just increasing, right? And I've seen so many production agencies, small startups rise, which are offering pre-wedding reel making for relatives of brides and grooms as a service. It's a very niche demand, right? And people have analyzed that people are ready to pay lakhs of rupees, because in the wedding they're spending crores. So why not get them a good social clout during the wedding, and that can be a service itself.
So what are some more niches right now which you think are trending?
See, every once in a while the industry sees a glimmering star. Right now it is AI, and every agency is trying to figure how do we innovate on that. What are the next kind of new age technologies that we can build, or new age services that we can build that offers AI as a solution to brands, and every brand is also looking for it. Most of the big brands are looking for how to integrate AI into their marketing mix. And the answer is not clear right now. So the first two kind of figure that are going to be the winner.
So basically, what would you do next once you've figured your niche out?
So I'm very bullish that sales come first and then comes perfection. So what I mean by that is, when you're starting an agency, once you've figured a niche that you want to go towards, start by directly diving into it, and you learn how to swim along the way. Once you go out there to the kind of niche customer that you want to talk to and sell a service, whatever is the promise that you made in that sale, you'll by hook or by crook figure out how to service it. So the first thing I would do once the niche is figured is go out there and sell. once the customers are brought in, figure out the processes of how do I end up delivering that service and do it well. Then focus on execution and process building, and then focus on hiring once I have enough customers.
So as you told, you need to start working on your sales as soon as you figured out your niche. So do you have any thought around, okay, what should you do to get your first sale?
So over the years, we've learned a lot from our clients. And one of the biggest things I have learned is be fucking audacious to reach out to people.
Okay.
I've learned this from Animesh Jalees, our CEO only. He doesn't think twice before sending a WhatsApp to Cred's owner also, right? And that's the level of audacity you need to have, and have reach out to people shamelessly.
Right.
You have LinkedIn, you have Instagram, you have scrapers that can get you email IDs and numbers of people directly. All you need to do is reach out and figure out a very simple pitch which works in your favor, which doesn't take a lot of time or effort from the person you're reaching out to. One thing we always say to the sales team is give more, ask less. What I mean is, don't make it an ask. Your pitch should always be that, hey, this is the value I can offer to you, and figure out what's that big give that you can give and pitch that well.
And if they have a requirement around those expertise of yours, they'll hire you.
Yeah.
So how do you as an agency use AI? What is your opinion on directly using ChatGPT content versus a human touch to it?
We think AI currently is best use case when you use it for speeding your processes, not for final outcomes. So any service you're into, be it, so if you're into video production, for example, AI can be very relevant for brainstorming scripts with, or brainstorming the title of your video with. It is very relevant for making sketches and storyboards. Like literally yesterday, we built 16 different storyboards for a video project within 30 minutes. It's only possible because of AI, right? And that quick output is what AI is best used for right now. You need a lot of manual review and understanding of the subject matter, because AI is not fine-tuned for that yet.
So talking about the moat basically means competitive advantage over your competitors, right? So first is the niche. If you have a niche, you have a moat. Any other ways of creating a moat for your new agency?
I think moat is usually figured after you do a few projects.
Okay.
Once you start doing some projects, you'll figure out what is so unique about how you do things. If it is, let's say, a video production agency, your moat could be script writing. Let's say you're really good with the kind of scripts you make, or your moat could be lighting, for example, right? I've seen a few directors which are really good with how they use LEDs in the production, and they have a style where they use red and blue LEDs in what they do. And next time I want to think of a project, I think of those directors. So your moat could be anything that's very different than your competitors for a particular service that your agency provides.
So talking about moat, do you think once the SORA is out for video production services, there will be some decrease in demand in the market or something like that?
Okay, I'll give you a very interesting fact. There was a time where we were recruiting copywriters, or rather script writers, because we were getting a lot of inquiries for brand films and TVCs or DVCs. At that very time, because we weren't getting the recruit in time, we started experimenting with script writing through AI a lot. So we had our whole content team brainstorm for 3 hours and did what we call as a sprint, and just generated hundreds and hundreds of script during those 3 hours. Hundreds of scripts, because if we are 9 people working for 3 hours constantly, everyone is given a brief and everyone works together. That's what we call a sprint.
So those guys were script writers themselves, so they were able to
They were
judge
content managers. They
Content
weren't
managers.
expert copywriters or script writers.
Okay.
But they could use AI tools to be able to somewhere get to a level that's as good or somewhere close to a script writer. So ultimately, we ended up doing 2 to 3 projects without even hiring the script writer.
Oh my God.
So when people say that jobs are getting lost because of AI, it's somewhere true. Because there will be times where AI is helping you do things which actual humans are hired for. And I don't think it's going to reach a level of perfection that is good without human interference, at least not right now. But at the same time, I do think a lot of mid-level players or sub-level players in each field need to get scared, because AI is somewhere better than them. The A-listers or the 1% top skill talents aren't very much affected by it. But if you're mediocre in your job, start fucking working to better that job.
What about creative strategists? Do you think their job is also endangered because of AI?
Very interesting use case. Yesterday, we were analyzing what kind of campaigns can we build for XYZ brand. We could just go to ChatGPT and ask them in this industry, what were the best campaigns that were done in the last 3 years?
Wow.
And we got very accurate campaigns that we could start researching about. So if you're a creative strategist, thinking like with a good enough knowledge of what's happening, like what's happened in the past, has very good references already, it's great. But a lot of people don't put in that effort into studying the subject matter as much, even though they're talented at it. And that's where it gets scary, because AI has an upper hand over there. They are fed in so much data, they have scraped so much data that they understand the backstory, and the machine learning has been effective to a point that they know a lot more about the subject matter that even talents need to start doing.
Do you think as of today, you should make a new agency or start a new agency? Is this the right time to get into it?
Yes and a no. If you're getting into it for the glamour, don't. If you're getting in for the money, don't. If you're getting in because you figured that you have something valuable to offer and do it differently than others, then yes.
So tell us, how has your journey been after you got acquired, and how are things different now?
So a couple of things change. One, you get a massive exposure when you get acquihired by a bigger agency group. So we got exposed to a lot bigger clients while working with mid-ticket sized clients. We started directly working with high-ticket sized clients. In the first 9 months of getting acquihired, we literally 4x the revenue itself. It was majorly because one, like, of course, bigger clients, but also with the kind of team and mentors that is around us, we can service these bigger clients also with much more efficiency. So that definitely is a plus.
Tell us some case studies from all these brands you've worked with, all these big brands you've worked with. How is it different?
Firstly, just the experience is also very different. This is a misconception that a lot of people have, that if you're working for bigger clients, you have to work more. Counterintuitively, it's actually the opposite. People who pay more for a service actually respect it a lot more.
You've seen a meme for that. $5,000 paid. Okay, done. $2,000. Do this, do this, do this.
Exactly. Right. And we're not even talking about 2,000, 5,000. I'm talking about 2,000 and 2 lakh. That's the kind of difference that we had. And the kind of experience while working with the client was very different because of that. Some of the big clients, and I'm not saying this as a blanket statement, even there are bigger clients which also make your life miserable. But especially the kind of clients we started working with, like for example, Spotify, we work with a premium team, basically focuses on how do we convert free customers into premium customers. And we do multiple campaigns for the same. We do flash sales, we do evergreen creatives, and we basically support the performance team with creative assets. And the experience there was very different. So the first time they reached out to us, they had a very detailed brief about what they wanted. And literally within 1 week of getting the brief, we did a massive pitch and they loved each and every direction that we pitched. They closed the project then and there. In 15 days after that, we had to produce over 150 creatives, and we managed to do that. And after that, every single campaign we've done, we have just 3x or 4x the results from the previous campaign that we did for them. And the Holy campaign we did in the last year, we had the highest ever premium opt-ins within a 3-day flash sale that Spotify's ever seen in India.
What did you do differently? I mean, how do you manage to do it?
It's a lot of nuanced insights and strategy that goes behind it. So for example, Spotify is a global client, right? So a lot of times their performance marketing had creatives that their New York team or the global team creates, and they used to run those ads in India. A lot of time that doesn't work. Performance marketing creatives need to be specifically talking to the audience with a specific message that works for them. And that is what we really enabled in terms of strategy. So what we did is we created holy creatives, which are very relevant for the audiences of India. For those 3 days right before Holi, they see those creatives again and again, which really triggers and speaks specifically to them. Another campaign that we did for them in Evergreen Creatives, we actually adapted each creative for South languages also. So we did readapts in 4 different languages of the South, which speaks about nuanced messaging, which will trigger those kind of audiences. And those are the small insights on which the strategy makes it work.
So have you worked with some Shark Tank clients?
We've actually worked with so many clients that have come on Shark Tank, but some of the recent ones we are still working with who've done really well. The Health Factory brand that had come, we have done photo shoots for them before. We work with a brand called Smotect. We're currently doing a lot of production work for them and working very closely with Gurseet, who's the founder, to solve a lot of their marketing problems. And the experience with Shark Tank clients is slightly different. Every brand that comes on Shark Tank has a huge problem of surge of sale right after episode airs, but also like months after, there's a problem of dip of sales because the Shark Tank hype dies down, and that's where a lot of marketing problems do arise. So we're working with a few clients to try and solve those problems as well.
Do you have any Shark Tank stories as such to tell? Like,
right now we're working with Smotech. Like 1 month before the episode was aired, we started working with them on hype building. So their social media was somewhere dead in terms of organic content. They were focusing very heavily on performance marketing. We started working with them on doing a lot of organic, like a lot of content that performs organically on social media. So we started doing multiple shoots with micro video content that that has a potential of shareability. As I said, when Shark Tank episode launched, we worked literally even on holidays to do shoots and produce and turn around that content literally within 3 days, so that we are keeping that hype alive even on our social platforms. Because right when an episode airs, most of the people are Googling and coming on Instagram and searching for them. So a lot of those brands need active marketing agencies, someone who's ready to get dirty way beyond their scope.
so secondly, I wanted to talk about the importance of personal brand. Brands like Bella Vita, brands like Two Brothers Organic, and Adil Kadri, they are huge personal brands and they are making profitable businesses out of it. So how important do you think it is nowadays to have a personal brand?
So as an agency, Chtrsocial's tagline is more human, less brand. We as an agency are also focused on humanized content only, simply because that's the consumption pattern today. If you see on Instagram, you open your reels, you won't see graphical content there.
Yeah.
No one's buying products. People are buying people. What I mean is people are getting interested or invested into brands because of the kind of persona that brand has.
Yeah.
And a lot of time it can be well established from the founder's perspective or the founder's persona. Oyo's recently doing a campaign that's giving away free nights, and they have Ritesh as main narrative as the campaign. It's mainly because the youth of India today are highly invested into the success stories of the entrepreneurs because they want to see, learn, and mimic that. So it's just going to increase as a customer behavior that people start trusting brands more because they know the founder, right? You as a person also, if you think about it, if you know the founder, you will feel much more attached to a brand. So it's just sensible for every brand to start humanizing the brand.
So to start humanizing, do you think starting podcasts makes a lot of sense for them?
We can start creating IPs, we can start creating podcast, anything that positions your founder. Today, there are so many founders that have gotten very active on LinkedIn. They've started putting a lot of their thought leadership content on LinkedIn. And because of that, the brand is also getting more and more reach and traction. Right. So we 100% believe that brands will need to at some point start doing this, each and every small brand also. So I really think learning doesn't happen while reading a book. So I have formed a habit of reading a book when I have the problem.
Okay.
So for example, when we wanted to better the overall culture and hiring process, I started reading this book called No Rules Rules, which explains the Netflix culture in detail. So like that, usually I would recommend if anyone's reading books, don't read it just for the heck of it. There's a 90% chance you will forget it down the line. Rather, the problem you're trying to solve right now, read the books related to that and not just one. Read every subject matter book about it and you'll genuinely get the value from that because you can start implementing it. When I was learning sales, I started reading a lot about that. So there's a person called Alex Hormozi. He has a couple of books.
Yes. $100 million leads.
Yeah. So that is super impactful in terms of sales. So when you are trying to solve or when you're trying to learn a particular subject, try to get the best books in that subject and start reading them. A friend of mine gifted me Michael Beirut's book when I was learning branding. It's called How To. And those are the ways I would recommend anyone to read books.
So tell us, what are your sources of inspiration? How do you get inspired daily? And do you have creative blocks throughout the journey?
I really think inspiration lies all around us. You need to constantly be in search of inspiration. because every piece of content you consume can be a reference point for the next idea you do create. Once you start reverse engineering why something that works, you start implementing them in your work. I don't think I've ever faced a creative block because of which I've not been able to do something.
Really?
Never. Because it is a lot to do with bringing a discipline in your life where you are consistently in a cycle that is putting you in a flow state to solve the problems that you are doing. And I, as a personality, like get a high from solving problems. So I'm never burnt out because of the problems, and that's like maybe a skill or like a power I have. But even the people who do get burnt out, even in our team, we always advise people to keep taking care of their mental health, their physical health, and start figuring a disciplined, like a day or a flow, or just in terms of their work life. They need to start getting disciplined in a way that there's consistency of output. Otherwise, somewhere or the other, you will suffer.
What does your day look like?
So I try to get up at 6:30, work out. Every day that I have done any physical exercise, that day has been good. So if you start listening to your body, you try and understand what's working for you, probably it'll help you make your day better. Every time, even slightly, I'm not good mentally, I go for runs. I start playing sports, having a lot more time off the screen. The more you consume, the more you go away from reality. And that's another thing you need to be very conscious of. Once I start my day from 11 to 7, there's no break. Like even while having lunch, I am working. So I hate people who like really think that you need to put a lot of breaks to get more creative. That's actually the opposite for me, and probably it differs from person to person. If you're in a like a life that demands extreme high pressure in and a lot of deadline work, you cannot afford to have that. So I usually have the same lunch I have, which is a salad meal. When I'm working, also there's a particular playlist I listen to which puts me in a flow state. And even when I'm designing, there's a particular place I need to be sitting in to make sure that happens. And once you start doing that, your body gets habituated to it, so you less often get a creative block.
And you were also telling us that you design logos in your dream.
So
Can you talk
flow
more
state
about
is very weird, right? Like most of the times it's difficult to get in a flow state when you're consciously thinking about it. It happens a lot more when you're subconsciously in the right environment and all the things around you help you get into it. So a lot of times, even in the REM sleep, which is a few hours before you wake up, you're usually in a very creative flow of mind. And most of the times that's very crucial for you to solve problems. So branding, for example, you're constantly thinking about how to show that particular brand in a better manner. And to solve that problem, most of the times when we're having projects, we do a lot of exploration in the time that we are working. But a lot of ideas come to you when either you're having a shower or you're like sleeping, or just you're taking like either when you're sleeping or you're in a shower, right? And those environments sometimes help you get in a flow state unknowingly. And that's also where these things can happen.
So do you also suffer from mindlessly scrolling through Instagram and seeing a lot of content? Do you get inspiration from anywhere of that sorts?
So I get a lot of flack for this, but I'm slightly a weird creature. I didn't touch Reels for the first 6 months that it launched in India.
What?
Yeah.
So what is that one tip for inspiration you would give to the people who are seeking inspirations everywhere?
So like 3 Idiot dialogue goes, right? Like, success के पीछे मत भागो, excellence के पीछे जाओ और success automatically पीछे आ जाएगी. Get into a habit of saving inspiration every step of the way. On your Instagram, while you're researching on Pinterest, or while you're just doing nothing and sitting just with your notes open, you should constantly be jotting down every piece of thought that you've gotten. Over the last 8 years, if you see Keep, which is my notes app, I literally have gigabytes of data on that, and it's just a text app, right? Because every minute I'm opening Keep and saving whatever new idea I have in some or the other bucket. Even on Instagram, when I do use Instagram today and I'm digesting any kind of content, or I'm saving them in different collections and taking inspiration so that when I get that problem, I can go back to it and the solution is right there. I have a collection for scripts, I have a collection for good ads, I have a collection for are the viral hooks that we could possibly use and get inspired from. And like I literally have 15 different collections. If you want, I'll later share a recording. You can show it on the screen.
So basically, if someone is looking to start with their agency, do you think he needs to work somewhere for a year or two, learn the nitty-gritty of the business and then start the agency, or he should just go in?
I might get a lot of flack for saying this, but I really feel a mindset of employee and agency owner is very different. I have experienced both of them because currently I'm working like an employee to the company while I'm also the leader. But because I started as an entrepreneur and an agency owner in the start, the mindset was very different. I've seen a lot of my friends who were my employees or who have been employees at other agencies go out there and start. But there are few characteristics which are very particular to how you start thinking because you're an employee that stop you from really being successful as an owner. And I'll give small examples, right? अगर आप employee हो तो आपको month के end पे relaxation है कि आपको salary आ जाएगा. Whether you work well, whether you work bad, it doesn't matter. The only fear is fear of getting thrown out, right? And that also happens over like multiple mistakes, not one. But as an owner, if you make one fuck up, your cash flow can go in the negative, and you're literally in a survival mode. And as an employee, it's very difficult to achieve that mindset. Also, being able to take risk as an employee, there's very limited learnings you get in terms of risk taking. As an entrepreneur, if you start, you'll make hundreds of mistakes and learn very quickly where your risk appetite becomes very big. But if you for years worked somewhere, those learnings are very difficult to take. And this is one thing that I see in every step of now hiring so many people, that if someone has learned something, it's very difficult to unlearn and then relearn it. Right? So if you're an employee and you're like a very different mindset, that is going to take some time to unlearn and get. And there's no, like, I'm not saying that employees can't be good agency owners or shouldn't start agencies of their own. I'm just saying I have experienced the perks of directly diving into it and having that learning in a faster manner rather than starting as an employee and then coming into the owner side of it.
So according to you, what kind of content pieces work today?
The only type of content that is working today is humanized content, right? And it's more video, less static. It is more human, less graphical. It is less branded, right? So every brand out there also somewhere needs to start humanizing their content, and it can be done in various different ways. It can be done through podcasts that as a format is working really well. Like it could be the founders, it could be employees, or it could be a different host that you bring on board. You can start by creating an IP that we've done for a lot of brands. You could also do Vox Pops as a format. Vox Pops are working really well. It's a format where someone goes on the street and asks people opinions, and that as a format is working really well. UGC is a format that has been in the industry since quite a bit. Now people are caring a bit lesser and lesser about it because they've now started figuring brands are misusing that format and those stories are not authentic enough. But if you do UGC authentically, it still works. Anything that's more authentic, more raw, more real, that is the kind of content that will work more and more going down the line.
And what do you see yourself doing after 5 years? Not as an agency, but as a person. I mean, do you plan to do another startup?
See, I don't plan 5 years in advance. I'm never. Because life has always taken a turn very differently than whatever I've planned. So I've stopped planning.
Building careers. So I see you selling courses.
No, man, I think like that model also is way too overused and over abused now. People have started doing courses for 99 rupees and selling it with a discount with landing pages.
के अंदर जब भी लेते हैं तब 20,000 का कोर्स रहता है. That's the point.
Yeah, so the whole problem is like, again, people don't understand what the consumer's problem is and they are just trying to sell something they have. That's where problem comes in. I would rather try and understand the problem and then solve that.
So if there's a new D2C brand coming up, what piece of advice would you give them to start with their marketing and social media stuff?
The problem with launching a new D2C brand today is because it's so super simple today to launch a D2C brands, in every niche, there are 4 or 5 newer D2C brands getting launched every, I would say not even a year, a quarter. The problem is to win trust. The number one thing that you need to do is win trust of the customers, and that's very difficult because you don't have a brand name. right? If you have a backing that can win trust, like let's say you have a celebrity on board that can win trust, great. If you're a house of brands that is launching a new D2C brand, great, very easy to kind of get a customer. But if you're launching a fresh brand, the biggest problem we see in D2C brands that come to us is that they don't have the capacity to build the trust and they don't focus on it. If you do focus on it, you will change the game. So for example, we are currently working with a brand that started with documenting their journey when they started building their startup. And in the first 3 months, when they had not even launched the product, they were just doing research, they built a followership of thousands of people. And those people are the ones that became customer. So when we spoke about humanizing the brand, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That start understanding that you need the touch with the customer, win their trust when you're starting out. After you do that, figure out distribution more and more. And that's where you'll be able to scale your
A lot of content
startup.
is going viral around 30 days to earn 1 crore rupees,
Yeah.
1 year to earn 1 crore rupees. So that kind of content is extremely going viral. First day of starting my restaurant business, how I reached at 30 days, what are the sales. So people are very interested to know all those pieces of content.
One bad thing about TikTok and micro video content as a format itself is exactly this, that there is a herd mentality. Kuch chal gaya to sab karenge. And that's a
Everyone is-
problem.
yeah.
It's good because a lot more people get exposure because of it, but it's a problem because people then keep doing it and it gets so overdone that no one cares about it anymore. So every once in a while, you need to innovate on that. So if you are starting out right now, I would suggest don't do the 30-day challenge. It's now overdone. People will ignore it. Start doing something new.
What is that thing you want?
It has to be new, man. Get inspired from 10 different formats and create a new format.
What is that one advice you'd like to give an agency owner who is starting out right now?
Don't start out if you've not figured your why. If you're just starting it because of the glamour, because of the money you are earning from it, it's not going to get you anywhere. Money should be the byproduct of whatever it is that you're passionate to do. Figure your ikigai, figure your passion. What is the drive of starting the agency? And secondly, start figuring what is the problem that you're trying to solve. Once you figured it, start it and you will succeed.
Do you think you would have done anything differently when you were 18 at right as of now?
100%. I can make a list of 100 things for you for that.
But
There are so many things
what
that...
are that top five things you would have done differently?
I think number one thing, because I was an introvert, that was one thing I lacked, is reaching out to people. I was shit scared and I overanalyzed every meeting I got into. Today, it's very different. Like in a day, we reach out to 5 people. But at that time, we used to overanalyze the shit out of it. Before going to a meeting, I used to prepare for 5 days. I'm not even kidding. But today, if I was starting out, I would be reaching out to 10 people a day, minimum. Because just the math works out, right? If you reach out to, 300 people in a month, you're sure to get 3 people to respond, right? A 1% conversion is a minimum. Number one thing is I would have more audacity to reach out to people. Number two, I would focus less on perfecting the skill because I was more of a perfectionist, and I would focus more on iterating fast. So speed is something that's very important in creative fields and very few people focus on it. The faster you iterate, the better the result is at the end of it rather than perfecting it. Like there's a scientific experiment someone did. So if you put one person to make one perfect design in 100 days versus another person to make 100 designs in 100 days, that person who's making 100 designs would be much better. So it's always about iteration and betterment rather than focusing on perfection. That's number two. I would really focus on getting enthusiastic, talented people around me very early on. And not that we didn't have it, we got a lot of people, but by luck. But what I would now focus on if I was starting out is figuring who are really passionate at the skills that I lack and how do I surround myself with those people and collaborate with them. We are now in a world where it's no more wise to just hire people. It's much more wiser to collaborate because the opportunities and the world is so much open that we're going to live in a world of freelancers just down the line because everyone can go out there and sell much easily. It's not wise to hire people and pay more rather than collaborating with people in the start. So I would just surround myself with more talented individuals. That's number three. One thing I did right, which I would again focus on, is not heavily invest capital, but rather figure things with jugaad when I'm starting out because it gives you more room for making errors and less pressure for being wrong. So that I would kind of focus on, and I would focus a bit more on growth. So we were very relaxed when we started out. For the first 3 years, the growth was very stagnant and we were okay with it because it was never the purpose of building the business. It was more the purpose of building the skill. Now I would focus a bit more on the business and faster growth.
So coming to the hiring bit, would you select an employee who is hardworking or who is passionate?
I think both those skills are a necessity. So there are a few things we keep like a paramount interest when we are interviewing any new recruit today, and we do at least 5 interviews in a week. I'm not kidding, because we want to constantly hunt better and better talents. It's not that we want to kick out our employees; they are there, but we still want to hire more people who are better at the craft that we are doing. Number one thing for us is proactiveness and initiative. So it's not even just hard work that matters. It's the intent of being self-driven that really gets the work out from someone. And those are the kind of employees you want, period. Like if they're not having the quality of proactiveness or initiative, do not hire, period. Second thing is like the hunger of perfecting the craft. That's another thing we look for. It depends again on the like stage at which we are hiring. If you're hiring a manager, we look for skills. We need those hard skills to be there. If you're hiring executives on the other hand, or juniors or interns, we don't mind that skill being 80% there or 60% there. We can train the rest of it. Also depends on whether they are on live projects or not. But those two things are paramount. Number 3 is communication. The ideas they have will remain in their heads if they're not a good communicator. And you can't have employees not have good communication skills, both for internal team purpose and client purpose. So those 3 things are a must.
So Darshil, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you so much, Darshil.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for having me.
There's a
I'm
lot of
sh-
insights which we got. How does things work, and a lot of people, audience will be able to relate and get.
This is the first
something
time I
out of
gave
it.
a podcast, so I don't know how it came, but happy to share, man. Like this is one thing, again, I'm trying to do a lot more, which is share those insights, but it's very difficult when you're running an agency to spare that time.
So, I mean, a lot of people also learn from people who have made mistakes. So they don't do it at the initial level. So the idea is that only. I mean,
I'm so happy for the newer generation that's starting out that they have these resources to look at and learn from, so they make lesser mistakes. I wish there was something like this when we were starting out. The only inspirations we had were international people, and the models there are very different. So I'm glad you guys are doing this and sharing these stories. Yeah.
Thank you so much.